And as we continue to piece together the latest coming in, a fast evolving situation at this point coming in from West Asia, which continues to remain on the boil. In fact, the hostilities between Iran and Israel only shooting up over the last couple of hours. Breaking news coming in right this minute. We're getting you these images of buildings damaged in Tel Aviv after Iran carried out its retaliatory attacks. Remember, that operation is called True Promise 3 in retaliation against Israel. We also understand that emergency services are at the scene of those damaged buildings in Tel Aviv, following what Israel's military spokesman has said was the firing of missiles from Iran. So at this point, Iran's state news agency also saying that hundreds of ballistic missiles have been launched in retaliation for Israel's attacks on Iran and blasting Iran's huge underground nuclear site at Natanz and wiping out its top military commanders and nuclear scientists. We have been telling you about the massive operation that was carried out by Israel, and now in retaliation to Operation Rising Lion, we have Iran's Operation True Promise 3, which is in fierce retaliation, as the country promised in the Supreme Leader's words, promising revenge against Israel's attack. And Iran has carried out True Promise 3 operation, the visuals of which we've been playing out for you in the aftermath of those ballistic missiles that were fired by Iran. All right, let's also get in a sense from what's happening on the ground at the UN headquarters. Remember, there have been efforts in the direction of de-escalation, but will that really happen remains to be seen. Let's go straight across now to Susan Tehrani, who's been closely tracking those developments there. Over to you, Susan. What's the latest that you're gathering at this point? Of course, a lot of anticipation, a lot of questions about where things are headed in West Asia.
Yeah, Molly, you said it, those questions and those unanswered really roundups of what's really ultimately going to happen. I'm standing outside the United Nations Security Council right now. A meeting is underway by the request of Iran after Israel launched those strikes against Iran's nuclear facilities and some of its missile defense capabilities in other parts around the country. Iran requested this meeting, this consultation, to say that basically Israel's strikes were against international law and regulation and wants some sort of understanding among UN member states to take its side. Of course, Israel's ambassador to the United Nations, Danny Danon, is also at this meeting. Both Iran and Israel will speak. Israel said prior to the meeting that it wants to tell the international community that they should actually be thankful that Israel carried out these strikes, considering the intelligence that they had, and that a nuclear Iran would not be beneficial to anyone around the world and would be a danger not only to the region, but also countries around the world. Now, it's also important to note that while we are hearing from member states and those that choose to speak, we also heard from IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi via satellite. He updated the council on what the IAEA and what the IAEA is doing right now after those strikes by Israel. He said that radiation levels are being controlled, they're being watched, they're in close contact with their IAEA colleagues in Iran, and also working with the United Nations to make sure that these facilities don't lead to radiation. And it seems that those radiation levels, at least at Natanz, and what we know so far, are stable. So he updated council members regarding that. He also said that, once again, his agency, you may remember about 48 hours ago, they had a board of directors meeting, a governor's meeting, and said that Iran is just simply not transparent when it comes to its nuclear program, and it's not opening up facilities to IAEA inspections the way that it should. This prompted retaliation by Iran, and then also 12 hours later, we saw those strikes by Israel. We're also hearing that the United States is indeed assisting Israel now as Iran has retaliated against Israel. It's assisting with its air defense shields as well. We're going to hear more about Iran's stance and where Iran stands. Remember, this meeting at the Security Council has been conducted at the request of Iran. It's an emergency meeting. The Iranian ambassador to the UN is going to be standing here behind me shortly in less than half an hour's time, and he's going to be briefing the press and also the cameras. Will be carrying it live, of course, for you about not only the situation and what unfolded inside the council, but also Iran's position moving forward. Israel and Iran both really calling on the international community to stand by them. And while we do hear from many member states that they are concerned about the way things are unfolding, of course, for the region and of course the international community. That being said, time and again, we are hearing that more often than not, we're hearing from council members that they just believe that Iran should not have.
Right. Susan, also important to point out for our viewers that both sides have maintained that their operations will continue. Now, even in the light of what Iran has said about True Promise 3 operation, saying that it's only the beginning. We also heard from Israel earlier talking about how its operation will continue. Let's just take a step back and also talk about, the sense of pessimism that also creeps in when one talks about the role of the United Nations, especially looking at how things have panned out, looking at the other conflicts. I want to understand from you what the sentiment on the ground there at the UN headquarters has been like when you've been speaking to those delegates.
Yeah, of course, Molly, the international community has been calling for restraint, and they're calling for really a de-escalation of these military activities, tit-for-tat operations that seem to be ongoing. As you mentioned, it doesn't seem like there's going to be any pulling of the head from either side at this point. But again, you have those positions of these countries that they've always held. For example, when you hear Russia speak, Russia is criticizing Israel and has been criticizing Israel since we can remember, since it's had a seat here at the Security Council. You hear European countries that urge for diplomacy as they do with any other conflict. But on the other hand, they come and say that Iran can in no possible way have access to nuclear capabilities that would lead to a nuclear weapon. And their position has been this all this time. So, a lot of lip service is being served here behind me as me and you are speaking right now. People call for calm, they call for diplomacy. And I think it was very interesting that Israel's ambassador to the UN, as he was taking a seat, there was a video of him taken by the Israeli mission. He said, well, people here sit and talk about what should be done and what shouldn't be done time and again, just words after words. Israel is taking action. Now, you can imagine it depends what side you're on and how those comments resonate. But I guess there is some truth to that, because it's very easy to sit around this giant table and constantly talk about a negotiated settlement. But then, when it's time for negotiations, then, that's where, I guess, the devil's in the detail. And we see issues like this arising right now where many U.S. officials, at least two that I've talked to, have said that they are considering this an all-out war between Israel and Iran. They say this is officially how it starts.